Written on the pages of the great book of nature lies a truth so profound that it has beckoned men and women throughout the ages to seek its wisdom. We will continue this quest and study many stories of humanity as we search for this light. On this journey, we will examine philosophy, religion, and science to uncover the hidden mysteries behind myth and legend using the symbols of universal Freemasonry. Welcome to Legends of the Craft.
Welcome back to Legends of the Craft. I'm here with my co-host, Brother Axel Savari, and we're here for another exciting episode, which will be Dreams and Freemasonry.
It's an exciting topic today, Brother Matthias. We spend, a third of our lives, unconscious for all intents and purposes. But there's this phenomenon that takes place, dreaming, which everybody experiences. Nobody can really explain exactly what it is or what we're supposed to be doing with it. And yet, it's responsible for so much of our lives. Literally, a third of our lives is spent in dreams, but then our dreams themselves influence our waking realities. Some people even catching glimpses of the future in their dreams. And today we're going to find out that Freemasonry can actually instruct us in the proper art of dreaming, and that there might be something more than just our own personal entertainment that we can derive from our voyages in the astral plane.
So dreams, Brother Axel, are, like you said, we spend a third of our lives doing it, and I think most people just chalk it up to the unconscious mind dealing with its internal problems. A lot of modern scientific theory just states that we enter a dream state, REM sleep, in order to rejuvenate the body and heal mental sickness and those type of things. And I don't disagree that any of that is true, but I think it's a little more than just the scientific mumbo jumbo they throw at us all the time. Dreams, for most religions, most traditions going back to the beginning of recorded history, is something that's real. We don't see dreams as real, but they are real. They're not real like the physical world real, like, touching things, tangible objects, but it is a reality. It's part of the universe. And as we spend a third of our time there, we should learn to understand it, to navigate it, and to essentially incorporate it into our evolution.
So this is one of the first, I think, departure points from our conventional, modern way of looking at the world that you and I are so fond of destroying with these podcasts. And I think it's the first piece of agreement that we can find with Masonry, is that Masonry teaches us that there is at least a world, if not many worlds, beyond what we can see and taste and touch with our physical senses. That Masonry instructs us that there is more to the world than just what is material. And so dreams are our most kind of like basic and apparent interface with that world. We all go somewhere when we go to sleep. We all have this experience. It's not that, the occasional kind of psychically gifted person among us has these experiences. We all have had dreams. There's not one person in the world that's never dreamt before. Now, the traditions that we're going to be talking about today insist that we are actually going somewhere, that it's not just our unconscious mind, whatever that is, just kind of running in circles and playing games with itself, that we're actually going to a place that has its own existence, whether or not we're there. Whether or not we are visiting it, this world has its own existence, it has its own inhabitants, and it has its own rules. And that if we can learn those rules by applying the precepts of Masonry to them, then we can actually navigate our way through this world.
So I think the first thing is to outline, where are we going in these dreams? So when we dream, we go to what is called the astral realm, or the astral plane. And we talked about this, I think me and Brother Patrick had an episode about the 7 bodies of man several years ago. So there are 7 planes, there are 7 bodies that we exist in. And the first and foremost is the physical plane, what we can see, touch, smell, interact with our 5 senses. The second plane is the astral plane, which can also be referred to as sort of the emotional plane. It's not a tangible place, but is filled with emotions and feelings. It's not a concrete place. It's an abstract place, right? And the third plane is the mental plane. That's where our thoughts take place, and we're experiencing these all the time. Like right now, I'm awake. I'm in the physical world, but I have emotions, and I'm interacting with the astral plane, and I'm having thoughts, and so I'm also interacting with the mental plane. But when we sleep, we actually leave the physical plane and go only into the astral plane and the mental plane, depending on how adept you are at dreaming. But most people are just on the astral plane. They're not strong enough to go to the mental plane. Now there are more planes that go up to the seventh plane. But for the sake of this podcast, we're going to stick basically with these three planes: the physical plane, the astral or emotional plane, and the mental plane. And again, when we go to sleep, our body kind of shuts down, and we awaken in our dream on the astral plane. And the reason everything is kind of like disjointed, sometimes you're in a house and it's like the house you grew up in, but it actually doesn't look like the house you grew up in. Or you're interacting with people.
But it feels that way.
It feels that way. Or you interact with people like you'd say, oh, that's my parents, but they don't look like your parents. Like we all have these kind of interesting kind of disjointed encounters on the astral plane in our dreams with things that are familiar, but they're not exactly how we would depict them in the physical plane. And there's a reason for that, because our feelings don't visualize, or they don't manifest on the astral plane as they do on the physical plane.
So there's an interesting kind of part of this I think you need to have to fully understand what you're saying. So it's not just the planes that exist all on top of each other, but as you're saying earlier, we have a body that corresponds to each one of these planes. So we have an astral body on top of our physical body. So these bodies are all existing in the same space, in the same way that the planes are occupying the same space. So when we're moving through the world, our physical body moves through the physical world. But at the same time, our astral or emotional body is moving through the astral or emotional world. So we have a history in this place as much as we do in the physical plane. So things that we have done in the astral plane have their own existence, and if I remember correctly, it's the laws of physics, so to speak, in these places are slightly different than what we would experience on the physical plane. That's why, like you're saying, the way that we experience it is disjointed, and it doesn't make sense in a kind of cause and effect way, because that's not how this realm operates.
Yeah, so essentially what we call the laws of physics applies to the physical universe, but on the astral plane, there's like it's not called the laws of
the
physics.
The laws of asterisks.
Exactly, and the laws of mentalism would apply to the third plane. So completely different rules, and we have to understand that. We kind of have to let go of how we perceive the physical world to understand the dream world or the astral world. And how do we know about the astral realm? Well, we know this through religious, philosophical sources. This is something that's been studied since man could think and communicate. Dreams have played an important part in human history. It's only now that we kind of relegate it to just like this, again, scientific backwaters of it's nothing to do with the supernatural, nothing to do with spirituality. It's just the brain, maintaining itself. It's like defragging a hard drive. That's how they kind of equate it. But that's nothing could be further from the truth. But what we do know scientifically, because there's some interesting clues with some studies that have been done. So when we're awake, Brother Axel, our left hemisphere of our brain kind of dominates, and that's kind of our logical side. The 2 + 2 = 4. If I want to go to the nearest town, I need to get on this highway, turn on this road, take a right, take a left. It's directions, it's orientation, it's step-by-step processes. That's the left brain. The left brain wants explanations, logical explanations. It uses reason in order to navigate the physical world. And the right side of our brain is not turned off, but it's kind of subordinate to the left side. What's interesting is they've done tests where they've put people, and they put them to sleep, and they've connected, certain devices to the brain to see what sections light up. And what they see is that it's a reversal. So when we dream, the right side now is dominant, which is our creative side. It's our artistic side. It's the abstract side. So the logical side is now kind of subordinate to the right side, and that's why your dreams, they're not logical. You can't necessarily use reason to understand them, because in the astral plane, logic as we know it doesn't exist. And so what happens is that the dreams are just as real as the physical world, but the left side of the brain tells you that it's not, because the left side, which is the concrete brain, in some ways is not as advanced as the right side of our brain. But our right side of our brain is something that's undeveloped in most human beings. But that's where, like, people that are great musicians or great artists, that all comes from the right side. But very few people know how to access that right side. So by learning to access and utilize your dreams, you actually become more artistic, you become more creative, you become more abstract, you can gain more inspiration in all the things that you do in life.
So what you're saying then makes me think of a question, Brother Matthias. Like, why is it then, if this accounts for a third of our life, and it's something that every human being will undergo, why is it that we are unable, for the most part, unless you're kind of naturally gifted, why is it that without any serious training, you don't remember any of this stuff? Why, and perhaps is the reason for our dream experience being so divorced from concrete realities that when we're in the astral realm, do we forget the material side of life? Like, in the same way that in our waking consciousness, we forget what happens in the astral realm, on the astral plane, do we forget our physical realities?
I mean, I think it's certainly part of it. So the left side is what's really good at remembering things. It's memory. Mm-hmm. Again, it's logical. It's logic. It's reason. But the brain doesn't store information it doesn't find relevant. And so what happens is that because of the effects of modernity, we no longer feel that dreams are important. So we don't remember them because we don't think it's important. But in cultures, like in African cultures and Asian cultures, where dreams are still very important to them because they think they're messages from their ancestors, etc., they remember their dreams a lot more than we do in the West. But that's because an emphasis is put on it. So the left brain to remember things, it will. And that's a really important part of cult training, is that the left brain, the concrete brain, is a tool. It's not the end. All this intellectual masturbation is worthless without spirituality, without the abstract mind giving it context and form. And so, in some ways, dreaming is really us living out our higher life.
So then, what kind of dreams are we seeking? So if we start taking I'm assuming we're going to call this like the occult approach to dreaming, the kind of like methodical approach to understanding our dreams, then I assume that there are different kinds of dreams. So like the astral plane is a world as varied and as myriad as our own. So there's got to be all kinds of hazards and dangers and things that we have to look out for and goals that we have to have. But so for somebody like myself who's a complete novice to all of this, where do we start in understanding what our goal is as occult awakened dreamers?
So dreaming, right? We dream every night. And what's very interesting here is that there are certain times. You don't dream like the entire time that you're asleep. You kind of run on a 4-hour cycle, where in the third to fourth hour is really where you enter a deep sleep, REM sleep, rapid eye movement, essentially. And that's when we can get to the deepest states of dreaming. So this idea that you sleep 8 hours a day is kind of a modern idea too. Again, I'm just crapping on modernity today, but people used to sleep like 4 hours and then wake up and do something and then go back to sleep for like 4 hours. So we usually operate on this 4-hour cycle. And at the end of the cycle is when you kind of reach your deepest sleep. That's why, like, usually in the morning before you wake up, that's when you'll have your best dreams. When you enter a dream, you're not aware that you're dreaming. And most people, they dream and they're not even aware they're dreaming. This is the lowest state of dreaming. What we want to achieve is lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming is where you are aware that you are asleep, that you are in a dream, that you're consciously aware. And the science has also done studies on this. So they go back to the brain studies while people are sleeping. People that have begun lucid dreaming, both parts of the brain are activated. This is really interesting. So during the day, our left side dominates. At night, when you're unaware, your right side dominates. But when you lucid dream, which means you are now awake in your dream, you are aware that you are in a dream, both hemispheres of the brain activate. What do you think about that, Brother Axel?
Well, it made me think of some other episodes of the podcast that we've done, particularly with this stuff about like the Hermetic laws and the divine hermaphrodism, that it's always this unity of opposites, this blending of two disparate parts that seems to bring us occult results. And in fact, that like really the result of occultism is to blend opposites and to take things that would otherwise not work with one another and combine them to make something more powerful. This is, to me, it's the fundamental lesson of Masonry too. Is like you take all these parts in terms of like the officers and the brethren of a lodge, and you put them together into a whole. So really, occultism is all about putting things into a whole. And so by awakening all of the brain, because we've all heard that kind of trite saying like, oh, you're only using 10% of your brain, awakening more and more of it until the whole is functioning as it should seems to me to be the goal. And anytime we get closer to that, anytime that connections can be made across that world, then we have the bridge flowing between our kind of lower experience of the world and these higher planes of reality. Information can now travel across these, and we have achieved the purpose of basically all magic.
The dreaming is truly the subjective state of existence. So you can see the waking world as being objective, and you can see the sleeping world as being subjective. And when you're lucid dreaming, that's omnijective. It's both subjective and objective at the same time. And the scientists know that the people are lucid dreaming because they'll be told before they go to sleep, like, wiggle your toe once you achieve lucid dreaming. Well, they wait, they're looking at the brain, both sides are fully activated, and suddenly their big toe is wiggling. So the person's awake in their dreams and is sending commands to their toe, Now, how do you lucid dream? This is always a question. There's a lot of books and all this. It's not that complicated, really. There are two things that you should do to begin with. Get a dream journal. You write down your dreams first thing in the morning. So you wake up, you write your dreams. You don't go get coffee. You don't go take a shower. You don't go pet your dog. You write down immediately, because you can remember your dreams right when you wake up. Within 5 minutes, you'll begin forgetting them. If you do this every day, you start training the left side of your brain to remember your dreams more and more, because you're putting an emphasis on it.
Because they're relevant now.
Exactly. So you'll remember more and more every time. So you write down your dreams, and you could do this on your phone. You could do this in an actual, paper journal, but you write them down. And the more and more you do that, the more and more you're going to remember. Now, the second part of this is lucid dreaming. How do you lucid dream? Many of you have probably seen the movie Inception. Inception actually draws on a lot of these ideas kind of in a fictitious way. But it's actually a very good movie, and they actually use a lot of real techniques. And so essentially what you do is you need to train yourself while you're awake to do something in your dream that will make you realize that you're asleep. So for example, during the waking hours, you would look at your hands, put your hands in front of your eyes, look at them and say, I am awake. I am awake. So every time you look at your hands, you say, I am awake. Well, what happens is in your dreams, you'll look at your hands in your dream and you will say, I am awake. And as soon as you say you're awake, boom, you are like, oh, I'm dreaming. And suddenly you're now lucid dreaming. Mm-hmm. This can actually be pretty scary for a lot of people, because once you lucid dream, you can start controlling your dreams, and it actually be quite scary. I've been doing this for 20 years, so I know how to lucid dream. And when I first did it, I actually stopped doing it for like 6 months because it kind of freaked me out. But lucid dreaming is a really, really, really powerful experience. It's a real experience. Science backs it up. This is not some supernatural new age mumbo jumbo. There's a lot of ideas that are mumbo jumbo around it, but like lucid dreaming is a real thing. And once you lucid dream, you can now use that third of your life in a productive fashion. You're in control of the third of your life. You're not being controlled or forgetting most of it. So emphasizing dreams by just writing them down in the morning, and this could take 6 months to a year before somebody lucid dreams. It took me about a year to accomplish it. But just using the journal, is the most important thing you could do.
This is interesting because like this, I feel like this is the aspect of our modern understanding of Freemasonry that's missing, is that Masonry truly is an occult school. And so I think it's fair to say you probably wouldn't have come across this had you not become a Mason those 20 years ago, that you wouldn't have been set down this path without that. And that this kind of like dimension of putting into practice all these things that we're told brings us a whole new dimension of our life. And I was thinking of a question as you were speaking. Would you equate then that our experience of going into a lodge, leaving the material world behind, as kind of being analogous to entering the astral plane or working in dreams? Like as soon as you pass over the threshold and you're admitted by the outer guard, that you've kind of entered into the dream realm where symbolism can be manipulated and played with.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, to your first point, the reason I got into dreaming was actually, it was a Masonic brother who gave me a book called The Art of Dreaming by Carlos Castaneda. And it's a book I recommend to everybody to go get. It reads like a fiction, and a lot of people have said that Carlos basically made up everything, and maybe he did. I don't know. It was an excellent book, and it helped me lucid dream, so I can't deny the byproduct of his work. But essentially, Carlos Castaneda goes down to Mexico and hangs out with these Toltec Indians. He calls one of them Don Juan, and Don Juan is essentially a master in dreaming and a sorcerer, and he teaches Carlos how to dream. And it's a very easy read. It's a very quick read. But it's true that the Toltec Indians had this huge emphasis in dreaming, that really when we're dreaming, that's more real than what we call the waking or ordinary world. Mm-hmm. And so that's when we can gain the highest glimpses of the higher worlds. So in terms of the lodge, and this is a Masonic podcast, yes, absolutely. That's why I think chambers of reflection are so important, because my theory is that when we start the initiation and we're admitted to the chamber of reflection, that's the real world, and we go to sleep. So when the hoodwink is placed upon our eyes, we actually are going to sleep. And the first real experience you get after that is the point of a dagger presented to your body, and that prick is the idea of looking at your hands and saying, I'm awake. Mm-hmm. So the prick actually awakens you in the dreams. The hoodwink is still on you, but then you feel this sharp pressure, and you're suddenly kind of reinvigorated, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that's the first portal in the entry to the lodge, and that's the first gate of dreaming, which is lucid dreaming, by the way. So of the 4 gates of dreaming, the first one is lucid dreaming, and that's exactly when the dagger is presented to your breast, and then you're admitted into the lodge room.
So then if we're going to take this as a workable analogy, then in the same way that we prepare for Masonry, then we should prepare for our dreams in the sense of it sounds like what you're saying is this starts in the waking world before we even get to the dreaming part. So as we're heading into sleep, as our physical body starts to get tired, we should be preparing our mind or our brain or whatever our astral body that's going to be journeying through this realm. We should prepare it for the types of dreams that we want. Is that correct? Absolutely. So again, what awaits us on the other side of that? Speaking of somebody that doesn't lucid dream, what do we expect to find once we pass this first gate over the threshold? So
there's 4 gates, and there's also 4 points before one is made a Mason in the initiation. So I think these 4, the 3 journeys and the arrival at the altar for the obligation represent the 4 gates of dreaming. So the first one is lucid dreaming, which is emphasized by the dagger being presented to your body. As a recollection of your duties. The second gate or the second journey in the second portal in Masonry represents the idea of beginning to build forms. So once you're lucid dreaming, you can say, "Oh, I want to go to Paris." You can imagine yourself in the Eiffel Tower. You could go to Antarctica. So you could start visualizing and creating your dream. So you're starting to become a builder, right? And the third gate is basically what people call like out of body experiences. It's traveling. It's what they call astral traveling, which most people talk about this as if they do it, and I think they're just full of crap. But I think it's a real idea that you can actually project your astral body to different places on the planet. So when I said it originally, like go to Paris, you're not really going to Paris. You're imagining yourself in Paris. You're still dreaming. But in the third gate, you're actually going places. You're astral projecting yourself to locations. And the fourth gate of dreaming is sharing a dream with another person. And this can be, there's a lot of occult ideas of, adepts, having meetings on the astral plane, people meeting each other. They don't need, like in Star Wars where they use holographic projection, they're literally, we can go talk to each other on the plane. We don't have to cross the planet with an airplane. And so these are kind of the four gates. And I think it corresponds to, again, these journeys that lead up to the altar. So the first three mysterious journeys in Masonry are the four symbolic journeys, and this is in the Scottish Rite traditions and Memphis and Mizraim. It corresponds with the first three gates, right? And in Co-Masonry, we encounter elemental forces because there are entities that live in the dream world. It's not just all projections of our mind. There are astral beings, and some of these are the elementals, right? Air, fire, earth, and water. And in our ritual, we learn how to be recognized by these elements. And why? Because in order to construct forms at the second gate, for example, you need to control the elementals, right? So when you control earth and water, you can start constructing these type of forms. I know this is getting a little abstract.
Well, no. So, all right, let me concretize it a little bit then. So what you're saying is essentially is that like Masonry, and as we experience it in the initiation and the Blue Lodges, is a magical ceremony which prepares us for voyaging in the astral realm.
I mean, I think it's more than that.
Among other things.
But yes, when we apply dreaming, absolutely.
So in this sense, the recognition by the elements in the first degree, that actually does put a magical mark on us that says that basically clears us for passage through these gates.
Passage through these gates, but it then allows you to start doing things. So if the first gate, the prick of a dagger, is to make you lucid dream, then the second gate is to start building your own dreams, right? And what are we as Masons? We're builders, right? Yeah. And people think we're builders of cathedrals. That was operative Masons. We're speculative Masons. And a lot of people think, we're building ideas. Yes, but we're not building concrete ideas. We're building abstract ideas. We're building astral and mental concepts, which we do. Dreaming is the way to start doing this. So when we take the first mysterious journey to the second portal, which is the second gate of dreaming, we're learning to control earth and water. Earth and water allows us to create forms. Now the third gate, which would be correspond to the third portal in Masonry, the second mysterious journey, that would correlate to fire or air and fire. And these are mental concepts. So from physical, we go to mental concepts. We learn to create thought forms.
So when we say that we are, we're building the temple not made with hands, it's basically, so from what I'm taking from all this is that there's the work in the physical realm, which is like building up lodges and temples and all that stuff, and that's great. But what that's really doing is preparing us to participate in this other work that's going on behind the scenes. This, at first astral work, like navigating our way through that, over to the mental plane where we build these thought forms. And it seems to me that the astral plane is kind of like a field of brambles or something. Like it's a patch of thorns that we have to cross in order to get to our real goal, which is the mental plane.
Yeah, I think, the temple made not of eternal in the heavens is an astral and mental plane construction. At some point we learned in Masonry that physical temples don't work, right? They keep getting built and destroyed by our enemies. So we're trying to construct a temple on higher planes. So those that cannot properly dream, those that can't get to the mental plane and create thought forms, how are they really to participate in the building of this temple made not of hands? So I think really we can correlate the first 3 degrees of Masonry to the 3 planes. So the first degree is the physical plane, the second degree is the astral plane, and the third degree is the mental plane. So in the first degree, we're learning how to control and subdue our passions, or control our bodies. In the second degree, the civil and liberal arts is teaching us the mental fortitude in order to start constructing our dreams. And in the third degree, with the events that take place around Hiram Abiff, we are learning to create powerful thought forms that can influence humanity.
So this then is why in Masonry, everything is taught through symbols, is because, we have this idea that because we inhabit the material plane for the most amount of time, that this is the origination of everything that we do in life, that everything that comes from us, our ideas, our creations, everything, it all begins in matter. But the opposite is really true. Like, the material plane is the lowest emanation of reality. That it actually, we have filtered all the way down from the mind of God through these 7 planes, and that the material realm is the outward expression. So each time we leave each plane that we step up from, we're actually getting closer to the source of things. So nothing emerges from matter. Ideas, history, great movements, basically everything actually comes from these higher planes, either the mental plane or the astral plane. Or, well, really from effects all the way up the chain right to the mind of God. But for our purposes in this podcast, what we see around us is not a creation of human beings tinkering with matter. We can rearrange stuff that's already here, but as human beings, we come into material existence, and there's really nothing we can do about it. We're here, we're governed by all these material laws, we have all these limitations, and basically everything that has been built was built by somebody else before we got here. We can mess around with it and change it a little bit, but ultimately, we can't change the fact that we breathe air and walk on earth and are burned by fire. Those are all set conditions because of things that have happened on higher planes that have dictated how the material world is shaped. So if we want to change the material world, we can't concentrate on matter. That's it's like a circular exercise. We're not getting anywhere. We have to go to these higher realms.
Well, that's the problem with materialism, is that that it's essentially dead, and this idea that we can come up with higher ideas and gain inspiration is false. I don't think we realize how much of everything that is great that we know has come from higher planes, and a lot of great men and women in history have said that they got their ideas in their dreams, be it scientific, be it artistic, be it music. It was almost like a gift from the gods is the way they would describe it. And many of them would say they would wake in the morning inspired. There's one modern scientist is Wolfgang Pauli, the German scientist who came up with the neutrino, discovered the neutrino. And he actually conceived of it in his dreams. He saw it, he examined it, and he woke up, wrote it down, and everything that he had seen came out to be true, right? And what's really interesting about Wolfgang Pauli is that he was actually working with Carl Jung to look at his dreams and try to figure out what they would mean. And he went to daily, sometimes monthly, sometimes daily sessions when he was around this psychologist in order to understand his dreams. And he was actually going to work with Carl Jung to develop a new language by which science and spirituality could be communicated in a way that they weren't fighting one another. He ended up abandoning the project because many of his colleagues were laughing at him, but he had a conviction, and frankly he was one of the greatest scientists of the 20th century. But he's not the only one that ascribes their discoveries to dreams.
Now, of course, that was presumably perverted once again by the arch enemy of this podcast, which is the New Age movement, into this whole like dream interpretation nonsense, where like somebody can ascribe the meaning to certain symbols as being universal across all dreams. I think from what you've been saying so far, like that seems to me to be an exercise in futility if all dreams are at least the co-creation, if not the conscious creation of the dreamer themselves. Like, how can we apply the same set of symbols to everybody's dream worlds?
Dream interpretation is garbage. If you've bought a book on it, you're wasting your time. And the ancients are very clear on this. This is something that you have to do on your own. You can be helped by, let's say, like the shaman, the Toltec shaman. You can be helped by people that are very good at dreaming. They can kind of give you a direction. But ultimately, you have to decipher the meaning of your dreams, because in the case that you haven't learned to lucid dream, there's still an extrapolation of your bodies, your physical, astral, and mental bodies. And therefore, it's the things you see are based on the ideas you have stored, your memories. If you're lucid dreaming, then you're building your dreams, and you're building them according to what you know. So I can't go into your dreams, Axel, and try to tell you what things mean, because I don't know all the experiences you had in life. I don't know what a specific image means, because maybe when you were a child, you were like frightened by a crucifix and it scared you, right? And then when you dream of something like a crucifix in your dreams, it's connected to that fear. Where for me, I might see the crucifix as a wonderful image, and I wouldn't have that fear when I saw it. So, again, I could help you, or someone could help you, or you could help me get to an understanding. But like really, like we have to look at ourselves. It's very much man know thyself in this case.
Well, and presumably too, there's another element to all of this that like. I assume that one should not go into this blind, in a sense. Like if the astral plane is as real as the physical plane, if not realer, as we're saying, then certainly all of the terrible things in the physical plane have their astral counterparts. If we're thinking that reality becomes manifested in a downward fashion towards the material plane, then everything negative on the material plane that we seek to avoid physically has to have its astral counterpart too, right? Like there's got to be some, like what is the astral source of evil in the astral plane?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I could answer that question, but I mean, I agree with you. There's an equivalence, but I think that's why, I think in a way everybody dreams, but 99% of people don't lucid dream. They're not really aware of what's going on in their dreams. Many people don't even remember their dreams. And I think this is actually a safety mechanism, because it can be dangerous when you lucid dream. There are dangers when you access the mental plane. I think there are dangers with all these things. And that's why in occult knowledge and understanding, you're told to approach these things with caution. And so for most human beings, we have this built-in safety mechanism where we don't remember our dreams, we're not lucid dreaming. But once you start lucid dreaming, there are kind of a lot of pitfalls, because if you start imagining things that you shouldn't, like you're going to draw negative energy towards you, negative entities towards you. Because you got to think of like the astral plane, like the Star Trek's hologram or holodeck, right? Where you can kind of imagine anything you want. So once you start lucid dreaming, you build things. You can start doing. You could, and I don't want to give any bad ideas here, but like you could say, I want to go shoot 10 people in my dreams to know what that feels like. Well, you shouldn't do that in the physical plane, and you shouldn't do that on the astral plane. Mm-hmm. And you certainly shouldn't do that in the mental plane where you create thought forms. So if you do that, you're going to start drawing negative forces to you, and you're starting to play with fire at that point.
What's interesting about that? So that kind of goes along with this like inversion of the order of reality that we were talking about earlier. So like we imagine everything as originating in the material plane and then going upwards. But if we take seriously the idea that actually manifestation comes to us from above, downwards to us, then morality and kind of like ethical restriction should be stronger as you move up these planes. So like if in the material plane we should play by moral rules because they're like effective for keeping a civilization together and they lead us to accumulate good karma and work off bad karma, then certainly that that is amplified if you go one step closer to the source of everything. So if you go into the astral plane, you're one layer closer to reality. And therefore, everything that was true in the physical plane, it's like it's more true in the astral realm. Like the moral and ethical restrictions when you dream, like they don't go away. Because in the material realm, we think like, or in the materialist kind of way of thinking, like dreams are this kind of like free-for-all zone. Like you can do whatever you want, none of it matters. But if what we're saying is that actually you're approaching closer to reality when you leave the physical plane and go into the astral plane, then actually your ethical behavior should be more restricted when you are dreaming than even in physical life. I know that sounds kind of weird, but does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the Catholic Church and many religions, but the Catholic Church especially, has this idea of like demon possession. Mm-hmm. Some demon taking over your body. And, there are priests that are charged with doing exorcisms to get this demon out of you. And they still have this today. Like, this is not something you read in history
Vatican
books.
still has exorcists, yeah.
I know one on the East Coast. There's a brother that does it. And I think when we look at that, I think this happens on the astral plane. So, like, if you start lucid dreaming and you start drawing negative entities to you because you're doing negative things, I think you have the possibility of being possessed. And becoming a vehicle for these entities that don't have physical bodies in order to enjoy the pleasures of having a physical body. So when we start lucid dreaming, we have to follow all the rules. We have to be prepared. We have to do it with a lot of caution, or otherwise we actually may be drawing very, very negative forces to us.
So again, this is really why conditioning ourselves before we sleep, and like anything that you want to take seriously, you do with intention and purpose before you go into it. So when we're dreaming, then we should have the same kind of like conscious forethought to say that, I'm going to avoid the same things that I would avoid on the material realm for the same reasons that I would avoid them. I'm going to avoid them on the astral plane as well. Like, is that the way of kind of creating this shield or safety around yourself when you're going into this place? That's so necessary, because I agree with you. Like, if the astral realm is populated with beings, then certainly some of them are so alien to our own form of consciousness that, like, what it makes me think of is like the old European fairy tales, like how you would go into the realm of the Fae, and they would want to give you things, like give you these gifts of powers or wealth or riches or whatever. But that they always came with some kind of bargain that you had to give up your firstborn child when you returned or something like that. That it's kind of almost describing this realm that, like, there are going to be things that want something of you, or that want to manipulate you, or just want to do you harm, because these are the places where negativity originates. Like, we have people in the material realm that do horrible things because they're influenced by this realm. But we're actually going into that realm where these influences have a being all their own. Like things that possess people on the material plane, like their power is diminished in the material plane. Well, we're actually going to their turf in that sense. Like, we're going to their home field.
Well, exactly. And that's what's so dangerous, is we're going into someone else's house, not even knowing what's there. And if we aren't in control, if we're not ready to protect ourselves, I mean, who knows what can happen. So, like, Paracelsus talks about, the gnomes and the salamanders and the what are the other ones? The
sylphs and the
undines. Yeah. And these are the four elements. These are the elementals. So in Co-Masonry, in the first degree initiation, we learn to be recognized by the four elements, by the gnomes. The gnomes are the element of earth, right? And how many stories are there throughout the Middle Ages about little
people
gnomes
stumbling into the world of the gnomes? Yeah.
And that's part of that folklore you're talking about, those fairy tales. And so, like, they're personified as gnomes and salamanders and all these things. And there are other personifications for these. But you're absolutely right. Like, it's not that they're good or bad. They're just these entities. And in Carlo Castaneda's book, they're called inorganic beings. That's what the Toltecs call them, because they're not organic beings like you or I. Like, they don't have flesh. They're inorganic beings. In Masonry or in occultism, we call them the elementals. And we need to interact with them, but we have to be in control of the elementals. We have to be in control of the inorganic beings, as Carlos Castaneda calls them. Otherwise, they're like tricksters, and they'll play tricks on us. They'll manipulate us in order to get what they want. They're not evil. They're not bad, but we have to negotiate in a way with these elemental forces.
I wonder then if that's the origin of the myths or maybe not the myths, but the stories of werewolves and vampires too. Because so like there's this layer of like inorganic beings that kind of function kind of in a machine-like way. They're just kind of like the natural forces that are found on the astral plane. But then you have things like werewolves and vampires, where these are malevolent creatures with a consciousness and an intelligence. They're predatory. They only come out at night. They're only visible under the full moon, right? They have their power only in the nighttime, and they're dissipated in the day. Like literally, waking consciousness destroys them. You can't see them, but when you go into their realm, they have more power, or that's where their power is derived from. And I wonder if that's the real origin of these legends, is that these are very real things that one can encounter when voyaging the astral plane.
Yeah, I mean, okay, vampires. Vampires are not beings that suck your blood. These are beings that suck your energy. I mean, we all know people that you're in a room with these people, and then after an hour, you just want to put a bullet in your head. You want to go to sleep. You're exhausted. You just want to get away because they suck your energy. We all know these people. Don't tell me you don't. We've met these people, and they suck everything out of you, right? Mm-hmm. You know these people?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
And that's a real vampire. And they exist. I've met these people. We've all met these people. They're not. They don't have fangs. They're not sucking blood. The folklore, the mythology is just a way of kind of personifying real ideas in a fictitious way. Mm-hmm. And werewolves are really these people that seem nice, and then at some point they become extremely violent and crazy. We know these people. Mm-hmm. I mean, in when you watch the news, these are like the psychopaths that end up they had a day job for 30 years, and the person's like, oh, they were such a nice guy. I worked with him all these years. I didn't know he could be a murderer, mm-hmm. right? But something triggers these people, and they do weird things in the shadows, right? So werewolves and vampires, they're not the fictitious version, but they walk among us, mm-hmm. right? And I think, going back to this astral plane, that they essentially, I think they're possessed in a way. They've been messing with things. They're usually people with very high IQ that are like psychopaths, right? Mm-hmm. And so they have this super mental ability. They go onto the astral plane. They're messing with things, and they get influenced, overtaken, and then they end up doing horrible things on the physical plane. And this is my little theory on all this, but I think a lot of what we see in history is mass murderers, horrible people, people that ran like the Nazi death camps. They're being possessed by forces on the astral plane. In Christianity, you hear like, oh, you're being influenced by demons or, by Satan. I think this is kind of a simple way of saying, that people are messing with things they shouldn't on the astral plane.
So I see your crazy theory, and I'll raise you an even crazier theory. So when I was a teenager, I was very involved with the rave scene back in the early 2010s and whatnot. And so eventually I left because I came to the realization that these are actually I think they're actually consciously organized as mass rituals to create a frenzied emotional state in order to allow beings from the astral plane to come into the world and take possession of bodies. So not only first of all, and I'm gonna really piss some people off with this, but I actually think that psychedelic drugs are not bringing us any closer to God. I think that they're actually working on our emotional centers and making us more vulnerable to malevolent entities. When you pair that with the particular kind of music and the physiology that it works on, all that heavy bass, I think it's breaking down
those beats down low.
I think it's breaking down the barriers between physical reality and astral reality. And so when your emotions are at this kind of heightened fever pitch, and the music is breaking apart the barrier between the two worlds, and you're at this kind of emotional frenzy, I think it's actually it's like a feeding frenzy for astral entities to come in and take people's energy, and if possible, to take possession of their physical form so that they can experience physical sensation again. I don't know if we're going to lose listeners on this episode or not, but this is what I think.
Well, I mean, I'll go even further. I mean, I think essentially, I think that's the danger of like the nightlife, like nightclubs, bars. I'm not talking about drinking a glass of wine, with your girlfriend, having some witty banter. I'm talking about going into the nightlife that essentially, it's an orgy of desire and pleasure. I think this is why Masonry tells us to subdue our passions and to improve ourselves in Masonry, because people, and all you listeners know what I'm talking about, when you're living a life at going to nightclubs every night, going to bars every night, like it's you're tired, you're exhausted, you're weakened. You're thinking about the wrong things. You're dealing with the wrong people. Like my mother used to say growing up, like nothing good happens after 10 p.m. I'm sure many parents, they used to say that. I don't know what the parents say these days. But like the nighttime can be, we're supposed to be in our bed sleeping, the simple life is you go to bed when the sun goes down, you wake up when the sun rises, right? And the night's not an evil time, please don't get me wrong, but it's when bad things can happen if we're not in control. And I think too often this modern life we live in has just said, oh yeah, just go drink, have sex, do whatever you want, do all these drugs. There are consequences. We weaken not only our physical body, and when you weaken your physical body, you weaken your astral body, and when you weaken your astral body, you weaken your mental body. All three are weakened, and when they're weak, then these inorganic beings, these elemental forces, these malevolent, forces can influence us, and we can do things that, you're like, why did I even do that? How did those thoughts come into my head? Why am I suddenly so angry? Why am I suddenly so jealous? And well, because we have created a lifestyle that invites those things into us. And again, this does not excuse the individual, because if those things are allowed to enter you, it's because you are weak, because you haven't done the right things to protect yourself, and you deserve the consequences of what happens to you.
And this kind of gets into another, crazy idea that I think we've kind of hinted at in the past on various episodes of the podcast. But, if we believe in the Hermetic axiom of, so below, as above, as within, so without, like there's this idea that there are opposites to things. So if there's organized good in the same way, in the sense of like, Masonry and this kind of like, these organizations that work towards the light, well, then the same must be true of the darkness, right? That there's this idea that if there's a white lodge, then there's also a black lodge. And both like the conflict between these things, it doesn't originate on the material plane. Like these, this conflict is fought on higher levels, and then the results of it is what kind of like filters down into material manifestation. There's a great article that Brother Charles Leadbeater wrote about the First World War, where like him and a bunch of other like light occultists are like talking to von Bismarck on the astral plane, being like, Germany, you got to stop doing what you're doing. Like they're having this whole kind of like astral conflict resolution but the result of it on the material plane is like World War I. It's like that's what we see. But their understanding of it was that it was actually something that was happening on these higher planes, the astral plane and the mental plane beyond that. So without this understanding that I think Masonry is awakening us to, that like there's more going on than what we just than our kind of like disjointed material understanding of all this, where we only see our perspective on it. Like all of these things are small parts of events that are happening and forces that are moving on planes beyond that which we see. Like we come to that as a kind of like physical experience, but that's not where it started.
Well, today in the world, this is October 2023, Hamas has attacked Israel. The Ukraine is still being invaded by Russia. People feel like the world's falling apart, that we're heading towards World War III. And I'm not saying it is that or it isn't, but everyone does feel that way. Where is this feeling coming from? Is it because they watch the news and they get these ideas, or is there generally a thought form? There's a feeling in the air that we're all picking up. Well, that feeling wasn't produced here on the physical plane. It was produced in higher planes. And so either that's the result of a conflict that's occurring at a higher level, or that idea is being pushed down into our minds, into our feelings. And so that's why, as Masons, when we're building the temple made not of hands eternal in the heavens, when we start to master the dreaming world, we start to master the astral plane, and then we eventually, and this episode is not about the mental plane per se, but when we start mastering the mental plane, we can start to give shape to thought forms that promote peace, that promotes harmony, tranquility, growth, evolution, cooperation. But right now I feel like the world actually, the thought forms are all death, destruction, division, discrimination, hatred. Those are the ones that are manifesting in the world. And where are these coming from? Again, I'm not a materialist. I don't think most people listening to the show are materialists. So they're not coming from, Joe Blow on the Foreign Relations Council. This isn't like from Donald Trump's mind. This isn't George Soros. This is what I can't stand about conspiracy theories. They literally think that just like 3 or 4 human beings on the planet can control everything. That's not possible. Like, there's never a spiritual explanation to what's going on the planet, even though we claim to be spiritual beings. Everything is because of physical processes. It's because one person pulled a switch or sent an email or gave an order. Like, no. The physical events that are taking place are but the echo of what is taking place on a higher plane.
Well, and I think that that's one of the things that this understanding awakens you to, is like you have a role or a duty to fulfill in all of these planes. And I think that's what Masonry is illustrating to us, is like the lowest level of Masonry is to instruct us in our duties to ourselves, to our neighbors, and to our civilization. Like in the first degree, that's kind of like where our focus is. It's like here are your duties on the physical plane, but you actually have duties on these other planes also, like to refine your emotions, to subdue your passions, is fulfilling your duty on the astral plane. To think highly and to speak truthfully, like these are things that service the mental plane and the activities going on there. So because, like, again, like you're saying, like we can't think of what we do on the physical plane as being the only manifestation of what we're actually doing. Like one way or another, we're all kind of aligned with these various factions and the activities that they're conducting on these higher planes. And my question to you, Brother Matthias, is like, do you think that the 20th century and so far the course that we're plotting in the 21st century has to do with like the fact that, like, as the force of religion and true like spiritual understanding of the causes of things in the world, as that begins to diminish, that like perhaps for a time one side is gaining dominance in the astral plane because we are not supplying it with the right thought forms, that like basically we're not adding the right fuel, and so our side, so to speak, on the astral and the mental plane is like they're basically running out of reinforcements. They don't have the energy, they don't have the supplies that they need in order to counter this kind of like materialistic and divisive current that's being forced down into the material world. And so as things begin to come apart, as people kind of get this general like psychic unease, it's because the balance of power is shifting in another direction.
Well, yes, I agree with you, and I think it's because as Masonry has weakened over the last 5 to 10 decades, the work being done in Masonic lodges has become polluted. We are supposed to be in lodge to create thought forms, to aid the creation of thought forms. So like when we're in a ceremony, we're sitting in the columns or we're an officer, we're supposed to be focusing on what is being said and visualizing those things. So when we talk about wisdom, strength, and beauty, liberty, equality, fraternity, we're supposed to be visualizing these concepts in the lodge. We're supposed to be following along each word and visualizing them. But most, male craft lodges are just, they don't even know why they're lodge. I mean, I don't even know why male craft Masons go to lodge, because they're just there to like give each other awards and do pancake breakfast, right? So they don't even know what a thought form is, probably. Or, I mean, most of them don't have any clue what a thought form is. And in Co-Masonry, there's so few of us that the work is being done at a low level. We need more Co-Masons. But at least we're aware in our organization of what we're doing. We believe that the adepts in the world are trying to create these positive thought forms to influence the future of humanity, and we are giving energy to that through the work we do in our lodges, through our meditations, through our ceremonies. That's why, like at the beginning of our meetings, before we get started, when we're forming the procession, the master of the lodge always says that we have to calm our physical bodies. We have to subdue our emotions, and we have to essentially align our thoughts. Like it's saying how we have to align the 3 planes within ourselves before we begin the meeting. And then, in Co-Masonry, we have a sensing ceremony to purify our space. We have a beautiful lighting of the lighting of the ceremony of the lighting of the candles, in which we invoke wisdom, strength, and beauty. These are all ceremonial ways that we create thought forms, because we're trying to, the 3 thought forms we do in the Blue Lodge is wisdom, strength, and beauty. Those that we're trying to build those. And what's interesting is that when we do the initiation and the candidates led through these mysterious journeys, and they have to stop at portals, right? The warden of those portals are the actual wardens of the lodge and the master, who represent wisdom, strength, and beauty. So we're learning that beauty, first we have to master beauty in order to get to the second gate to start building our own dreams. So, because what is beauty? Beauty is manifestation. So we're manifesting things in our dreams. In the second mysterious journey, when we arrive at the third portal is the senior warden, who represents strength. So we need strength in order to start creating thought forms, because that's what fire and air are. They're the subtler elements, right? And then finally, the master, whose wisdom teaches us how to access the final gates of dreaming. Because without wisdom, we will fall prey to the evil that exists on these higher planes.
Well, and it's interesting too that the symbol in the east of the Right Worshipful Master is the square. These 2 arms joined at an angle of 90 degrees. That by taking the beauty on the one hand and strength on the other, and again through combination, which is the ultimate alchemical and occult work, is to combine things into something more powerful. Like wisdom is the combination of strength and beauty. It's knowing when to apply how much of each in order to create whatever it is that needs to be created. And in the same way that the master brings people together to commune in a lodge, the 4th gate of the dreams brings dreamers together to communicate in a dream. And so really, like, these are just fractal expressions of the same work at various levels.
That's why I think every Masonic meeting is a dream state. Like, that's why everyone's like, oh, these tracing boards are all weird. There's all these weird abstract images, and why are we doing all these weird grips and tokens and words and signs? Like, really, like Masonry, like you go to initiation, passing, or raising, it's like a dream, right? It's disjointed. Some of the stuff doesn't make any sense. It's super abstract and symbolic. It's because Masonry is the dream state while you're awake, which leads me to another point about those that become powerful dreamers. You don't have to go to sleep to dream. That's what daydreaming is. So it's possible while you're awake to access the astral plane. While you're awake, you can do the same thing too. But that's much harder to do, because dreaming, you're kind of forced into it every night.
That's not like just letting your thoughts run away with you. There's a difference between like just kind of like thinking about things and actual daydreaming, right?
I think that's, what we call meditation. That can be what others call daydreaming. So when we can sit there in kind of in a trance almost, and we can do this while we're awake. That's really skilled. I've only been able to accomplish it a couple of times. Lucid dreaming is much easier than daydreaming, but you don't need to be asleep. But in a way, the way our biology is made, we're forced to go to the dreaming world every night, even though we may not know how to utilize it. But those that can do it while you're awake, that's another level, right? And I think that's the level of a master in a Masonic lodge. They control all the other gates. They control the wisdom, they control the strength, they control the 4 elements, and so they're taking it to another level.
So then, like, what might that next level of this look like? And, you know, one of the things that kind of occurs to me is this idea of, like, I think this is rather common in people that I've known that are kind of just like naturally adept at dreaming, is they tend to start getting glimpses of the future or things that might happen. I knew a girl once who had the ability to, she just naturally lucid dreamt. Like she had the most vivid and creative dreams. She didn't consciously have to work at it. She was just basically awake in the dream realm every night. Never had to do anything to get there. And she would occasionally like talk about, like some little thing would happen. She'd be like, "Oh yeah, I dreamed that." Like, "Oh yeah, I saw that in my dream." It was kind of nonchalant. She never made a big deal out of it or anything. It was just kind of natural to her that she was getting these visions from the astral realm. And so, because from what I understand, like time doesn't function the same way in the astral realm that it does here. Things kind of happen more simultaneously than we perceive them in the physical plane. Like we have to go from one event to the next to the next.
It's
to the
linear.
next. Like it's a progression of cause and effect that doesn't necessarily hold in the astral realm. So perhaps the first layer of what we're able to do, you know, as a service on the astral plane would be to work on this skill of prophecy. That it's not necessarily a gift, but it's a skill that we can cultivate.
Well, I think the best example of what you're talking about is the Old Testament. The prophets.
The angels are always coming in the dreams.
Yeah, and it's like they're all dreaming. It's very clear that like when we talk about Ezekiel, when we talk about Moses, when we talk about all these different prophets, the visions they're getting is either them dreaming or it's a daydream. So when we look, any Christian, Jew or Muslim should very easily view dreaming as a way to access God. Okay? We may call them adepts or whatever. This is different language, but like for the Judeo-Christian tradition, dreams is how you communicate to God. And so there are prophetic dreams. They're dreams that tell you of what will come in the future. So I think Noah, when he was between quotes told that the world will be flooded, I mean, he received that in a dream. He had a vision, and he was able to successfully navigate the astral mental plane, receive this information, and then try to tell everybody about it. But nobody believed him, right? And that's the problem. We don't necessarily believe people that come tell us, "Okay, I dreamed that something might happen to you tomorrow." But I've met enough people in my life that have told me something's going to happen, and then it happened. That it's really given me pause to be like, no. This is where the source of prophecy comes from.
Well, it's interesting. Like if you look at the ancient world, that this was kind of like an institution of an office, like somebody that would assist either that would do the dreaming themselves or assist like a king or an emperor or some kind of similar position in understanding their dreams. I know we crapped all over New Age dream interpretation at the beginning of this episode, and what I'm talking about is not exactly the same, but like having like a Don Juan or a shaman to kind of guide you through the constants of the astral plane as being a kind of like necessary implement of governing or of leading a people that one would need to access these realms. I mean, that you're right. That's the whole story of the Old Testament, is these various prophets that arise from the people of Judea that are instructed in their dreams in order to advance a specific plan that God has for the evolution of humanity in this area of the world.
Yeah, but Christians tend to be like, "Oh, a prophecy, is a prophecy," and then you're like, "No, it's a dream," and they're like, "Well, that's not what the Bible says." I'm like, well, they didn't have the language that we have today. But
maybe they did, and we don't have the language to translate what they're saying.
Probably, but like it was a dream, and it may have been a waking dream. They may have had a vision while they're awake, but that is accessing higher planes. Because if what we call a prophet isn't worthy, they wouldn't have been given those visions, right? So they have had to. They had to achieve a certain level of occult development. A very good example of this is actually the Oracle of Delphi. So it was actually women, because women are actually seen as being more prophetic than men generally in the ancient world, because women tend to have the ability to live more in the moment and they're not so governed by the left side of their brain. They actually have more access to the right side of their brain, and therefore they're more intuitive. So the Pythia, who was the priestess at for Apollo at Delphi, they would sit like on this tripod, and there'd be like these vapors that came up from this crack in the ground that there's a whole mythology around. But people would come and ask for prophecies, many of which would come true. And the Pythia was always a woman. And the modern explanation, of course, is like, oh, the vapors were hallucinogenic and she had hallucinations. That's just nonsense of trying to explain something supernatural. These women, there was a long line of women for thousands of years that it was like a family that essentially held this power, and they would sit on this tripod and they would deliver like riddles and judgment to people. And it's very clearly, like when you look at the Greek text, it kind of very much shows that they would enter this sort of trance, and sometimes people wouldn't even understand what they're saying, but they were daydreaming. So somebody would come with a question, and they would go into this trance. They would induce this ability to go to the astral plane and the mental plane, and they would return back with an answer.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also, as we mentioned before, there are beings, some of them human beings, that are working consciously on these planes. So, especially in the Theosophical tradition, you have this idea that there are adepts, people that have mastered these kinds of skills. They could be good or bad. They're not necessarily all working for the cause of evolution, but that these people can actually send dreams, just the same way that God uses angels, which literally is Greek for messengers, to deliver dreams unto his prophets. That at lower levels, people that are adept at the use of building thought forms and building with astral matter can project these things into the minds of people, either consciously or unconsciously. Kind of how, like you were saying, that there's a thought form that's being forced down onto the material plane. That sometimes dreams can be sent for less divine causes, in the sense that, maybe they might be working for evolution, maybe they're working against evolution, but that there are kind of operators who understand how to do these things and send us dreams if we need them, or people that might have advanced knowledge of things that want to kind of reveal it in a more natural way might send a dream for you to interpret.
So I think we've gone a lot through the ideas of dreaming, the astral plane, and Freemasonry. I think it's good here that we end on some practical advice, right? So earlier I stated, you should do a dream journal. That's the first thing I'd recommend to anybody that wants to try to lucid dream. Do the exercises of either looking at your hands or some type of object that you see frequently, and every time you see it while you're awake, say, I am awake, I am awake, I am awake. And then that'll train your brain when you're asleep to say the same thing in order to awaken you. Before you sleep, not only should you think of the highest ideals, and think of the things that you want to try to solve and the things you want to aspire to, but you should tell yourself, I will lucid dream. I will lucid dream. You should tell yourself, minutes before you're about to fall asleep, go to sleep saying this mantra, I will awaken my dreams. I will awaken my dreams. And that will send that command to the left side of your brain to induce lucid dreaming. But, the idea is after you lucid dream, it's like, well, what do you do, right? Well, again, I would really recommend avoid doing anything negative, any sexual related acts, going around killing people. Don't turn it into like an episode of Grand Theft Auto, where you're just driving around your dreams and beating people up and taking their stuff and running people over. You don't want to do that. You don't spend your dreams flying around because it's fun to jump off a cliff and fly. A lot of people do the flying actually, which is really interesting. What you really want to focus in is the things that you're trying to do in your life. So problems you're trying to solve, things that you're trying to understand, because in an abstract fashion, your dreams will reveal the answers that you're seeking. So if you're really diving into, I don't know, for example, trying to understand the mystery of the Trinity, right? In your dreams, once you lucid dream, you should ask the question, what is the mysteries of the Trinity? And your dream will start to to encompass all the things you need to try to understand that subject. You may not understand everything that you're looking at, but you can basically demand that your answer be given in an abstract fashion. So don't waste your dreams like, going to an orgy. Don't waste your dreams, going around like beating people up, or like, you hate somebody so much you start beating them in the face in your dreams. Like this is terrible things. This is why I think people don't naturally lucid dream, because you kind of have to prepare yourself for this, or it can be very negative. So use your dreams in a constructive way. I mean, often I will use my lucid dreaming to, by trade, I'm a computer programmer, and a lot of times I'll spend 8 hours on a problem when I can't solve the problem. So when I lucid dream, I will try to solve the problems, and I will awake with the answers, and then I'll go program it. So if there's a book that you've been reading that's really interesting on, whether politics or religion, like you can digest those ideas in the astral plane so that you can incorporate these lessons. A lot of people just read books and they regurgitate facts, but they never really take anything from it. But in the dream state, you can translate these facts, this concrete knowledge into the fabric of your being. And so when you're in the astral plane, use it as a place to make spiritual experimentations. Think of it as Solomon's workshop, right? It's a place where you can test your ideas, look at your ideas, hear your ideas, explore your ideas, and all you have to do is think about it in your dreams, and you'll start to visualize the truth.
Another piece of practical advice, Brother Matthias, you mentioned earlier the kind of like the 2 REM cycles that we have in a night, and there are many. There's much documentation about ancient practices of like you complete the first cycle and then you get up and kind of do something, kind of keep your conscious mind kind of half occupied so that you stay in a kind of a waking dream state and then go back to sleep. Like try not to kind of get like, again, this modern idea of you just cram all of your sleep into one period because this is our sleeping time, this is our waking time. Try to break that up a little bit. Try to kind of come back to the material world, but don't allow yourself to come back fully. Don't look at a phone. Don't look at any kind of distractions. You can use those devices to kind of wake you up at that time to kind of get you used to this new schedule. But like you were saying, that second cycle will plunge you even deeper. And it'll also give you, if you wake up after the first one, it'll give you an opportunity to write down anything that you remember in that time. And the same with the second, so that when you wake up, you're kind of in the mode of recording whatever has just happened to you.
And then when you wake up in the morning, obviously write your dreams in a dream journal. But in a second bit of advice is the night before, put a glass of water on your nightstand. Don't drink it, but when you wake up in the morning, drink it right away. Now, this is some weird folklore. I didn't believe it at first, but some very wise person told me to do this. And I now do it every day religiously. For some reason, like your dreams, they say, get kind of captured in the water. Like this is all like old Native American ideas. A lot of the cultures in the Caribbean also have this idea, and in Africa. So you basically take the water in the morning, you drink it. First thing, you drink it and you start writing your dream journal, and you're supposed to remember it because for some reason the water like captures the essence of your dreams. I'm not saying there's any basis for it, but I do it every day, and I do believe it works. The other thing another wise person told me about dreaming is to purchase a rod of selenite and to keep it either under your pillow or on your nightstand as well. Better under your pillow. And for some reason, that mineral helps you remember your dreams and to stay. It helps you, get into a deep state of sleep.
Yeah, no, I think that you should approach this like any other serious work that one's going to. I can't wait to listen back to this episode and edit it, Brother Matthias, because I'm going to take all of these activities that you've laid out here and start trying to find you on the astral plane. But as with anything, I think the other thing to remember is not to be discouraged in your early activities. Things like this, things that are worth doing, take a long time. They take a long dedication. You said it took you about a year to even achieve this state that, things like this have to become a practice, just like Masonry. Masonry's not like, you don't just go and get initiated and then never go back, and then you're a fellow craft. Like, you have to go to meetings, you have to put in the work. It's the same with dreaming. If it's something that you want to do, you have to do it consistently.
And I actually think the 3 working tools in the first degree tell you exactly how to dream, because the 24-inch gauge tells you essentially how to divide up your day. It divides up the number of hours, and it's telling you how much you should sleep, how much you should work, how much you should meditate. And so having a proper 24-inch gauge is necessary to lucid dream. You don't drink alcohol, don't eat right before you go to sleep, because you're not going to sleep well and you're not going to lucid dream. So really, you should have an empty stomach 2 hours before. Don't go to bed super late. If you're only going to sleep like 6 hours, it's probably you're not going to do great lucid dreaming. You need 8 hours divided into the 4-hour segments. But use the 24-inch gauge in order to map out how you're going to dream, because like these Toltec Indians, these shamans, like they were more interested in sleeping than being awake. So their whole day was mapped out of how they could properly sleep and achieve these higher states of understanding. The mallet and the chisel represent essentially the first and second gate. So these tools are what gets you into lucid dreaming, and then constructing forms on the astral plane, allowing you to experiment and to visualize your problems. Because that's another thing I didn't mention before. Like if you're really like, if you're having a problem, like, let's say you're going through a divorce, or you have a problem with a coworker, or you're very angry, or you can't focus in life. You can use this experience on the astral plane to understand the root causes of your issues. So because you ask you start lucid dreaming, right? You look at your hands, you're like, oh, I am awake. And then saying like, oh, I'm in my dream. What am I going to do in my dream? And you're like, oh man, I was really angry today. Why was I angry? You literally just say the words, why was I angry? Mm-hmm. And suddenly your whole dream will be filled with the symbols that will give you the answer to why you were angry, or why you're having such a hard time focusing, or why you're unhappy in life. So like this time can be really, really useful. Either you can just piss away a third of your life, or you can actively use it in order to improve yourself.
As you make a good point there, in that, like, people get into this because they want to fly, or they want to have all these wild experiences in the astral plane. But really, like, what would actually bring you more contentment in life? Like flying for an hour in your dreams, or like organizing your life, understanding why you're upset during the day, understanding, the root cause of issues in your relationship, or what you're supposed to do with your life, or how you're supposed to handle some kind of situation that shows up. Those things are infinitely more useful than entertaining yourself.
Well, and if you want to be a Beethoven, you're a musician, what do? When you reach lucid dreaming, you start composing music. Like, because it's a rich environment for abstract thoughts. So if you're trying to get some sort of piece of music worked out, you can just sit there at a piano for 8 hours, trying to figure it out and get frustrated, or you can go in the astral plane and try to do it with your astral piano. If you have writer's block, go onto the astral plane, lucid dream, and then unblock yourself. Explore new ideas for your stories. If you are an athlete, it can also be very useful, because you go into the astral plane, you start lucid dreaming, and then you actually can run in your dreams. You can swim in your dreams. You can play golf in your dreams. Like, you can perfect your physical form by training your body at night, so that when it's awake and doing these things, it has more you have more accuracy and precision. So it's not just for artsy stuff. It's the athlete can really use this. The wrestler can really perfect his forms, his moves on the astral plane.
So this is another thing that one can do is, like, if you read fiction before going to bed, like once you start engaging the right side of your brain before you sleep, you're kind of already setting yourself up to work in the mode that you need to, because so much of our, like, this is one thing I found changed my life with my wife. We don't talk about kind of material concerns in the bedroom. So like if we have to talk about money or something we have to do with the house, like none of that happens when we're going to sleep. That's like, it's kind of like it pollutes the kind of the dream state that we're trying to enter, like the kind of restful sleep that we're trying to have. You have to disengage the left hemisphere of your brain and kind of leave that at the door of your bedroom, and to kind of cultivate a space that is conducive to this. So, sometimes we'll light a candle, or we'll play some music, or light some incense to kind of like get us into a creative kind of right brain dominated space before going to bed, so that all of that technical, logical, cause and effect type thinking is left completely outside of the bedroom.
And as a final bit of advice, it's kind of two-part, is trying to achieve the fourth gate, which is essentially higher levels of telepathy and interconnectedness, is first in the Masonic Lodge. So in the lodge, when you're sitting there, you need to try to visualize what's going on. So when the and part of the ritual is talking about the elementals, you need to envision the gnomes and the salamanders in the lodge room. When they talk about the pillar of wisdom, I visualize a pillar in the east. When I hear the words beauty, I visualize a pillar of beauty in the south by the junior warden. I try to visualize these things. I try to induce my imagination to see these things so that I can induce visions in lodge. Because most of my epiphanies have either come out of dreams or in lodge, because I'm not thinking about football or meals or what I did the night before. I really try to focus on lodge and exactly answering the questions that I have about the universe. And the second thing, and this is really weird, but just trust me on it. If you're married or have a girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, when you go to sleep touching foreheads. So if you want to share a dream with someone, touch foreheads. Fall asleep actually with your heads connected, and if you want to actually share a dream with another person. And that's the most practical advice of how to do that. Eventually, when you master the four gates, which is arriving in Masonry at the altar, and the hoodwink is removed, and you see the real light, not material light, but real light, it's because the astral plane has become as real or more real than the physical world.
And ultimately, like, that's our goal in freeing ourselves from, like, that's the other side of subduing one's passions, is this idea of like freeing oneself from any material entanglements. Like, matter is this kind of like heavy, sludgy thing that we have to move through. It's like sucking mud, basically. And the more that you reduce your weight in this world, the easier it is to traverse that and get out of it and kind of float unchained in these other realms.
But as Freemasons, ultimately, our goal is to have the astral, mental, and physical plane be visible at all times. That we don't have to go to dream to access these places. We don't have to meditate. That we are fully awake physically, fully awake on the astral plane, fully awake on the mental plane. And when we do that, we've really evolved to a new level of spiritual understanding. That's what I think is clairvoyance, and that's how you achieve it, is by being able to see things so clearly that the three planes merge into one sort of reality instead of being three separate realities. And I think Masonry is one of the most powerful tools for that. The problem is that Masonry has lost so much of its understanding through the last centuries that people don't realize it. And if we can start teaching these things again to the initiates, to the apprentices, to the fellow craft, to the master masons, then Masonry will become a powerful ally in restoring our spiritual heritage.
Thank you for listening to Legends of the Craft. This podcast is purely the opinion of brothers Matthias Comsier and Axel Suvari, and does not represent the official views of Universal Co-Masonry. Universal Co-Masonry is a Masonic order founded on the principles of liberty, equality, and fraternity that admits men and women without distinction of race, religion, or creed. For more information, please visit universalfreemasonry.org.